Good morning and welcome to the Capital Gang. I am Hon Ssemujju, and on a Saturday with a bevy of topics, as Moses of the morning show would say. Moses is still in the studio, so Moses, you can say hello. Welcome to the bevy of topics.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Capital Gang, number one talk show in the land with a bevy of.
Why did you need to change your voice? You know, again, Old Kira Road. Oh, you can come with all that excitement.
That's Kampala.
That's Kampala. Mm-hmm. Old Kira Road. I'm going to ask
because I have bad road, so
yeah,
each time you find one, you think it is Kira. No.
Kira Road is in a real sorry. My cars are going slowly, and then now there's a complete contradiction. At the top of Kira Road, there are traffic lights, so there's total disorder at the bottom, and then absolute order at the top with the traffic lights.
Yeah, because the contractors, MPs don't fix roads.
What do you do?
You mean, Oscar, you don't know what the MPs do? What's the difference between you and your relatives in Nigeria?
We know you are the MP, we want that road fixed. End of story.
Yeah, then you will not elect a president and a cabinet.
Anyway, I should tell the listeners that we have not delayed to start the show. We're waiting for Honorable Ssemujju to renew his ID. He was supervised by the ED herself, Madam Rosemary. You're most welcome to the Capital Gang, Madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're going to bring that technical side to the microphone as well and be a little bit louder.
Sure, can you hear me now?
Still.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we'll tinker. Moses will tinker with that microphone so that we hear you well. In the studio is also my other favorite NRM person, Honorable Emmanuel Dombo. You are most welcome.
What is favorite about Dombo?
Thank you, and it's a pleasure for me to be here. And good morning, everyone.
I am not going to withdraw my statement.
You are misleading listeners.
Yes, my favorite NRM person. You're most welcome. How have those elections gone?
Wow, very interesting. You know, a while ago, about 2 weeks ago, the NRM was being accused of deceiving Ugandans, that we didn't have the numbers in the registers. Now when the people see the hype in the elections, they realize the numbers are there. So you have seen we are looking for the competition. We have learned a few lessons, and we believe the primary elections should be better, because this has basically taught us what we should be doing. But we have the numbers.
You have the numbers.
Members
Today's topic says is opposition in turmoil, if we get there. But maybe next week's topic will be, is NRM in turmoil? But yes, Benjamin Katana, the lawyer treasurer of NUP, is in the studio. You're most welcome to the Capital Gang.
Thank you very much, Oscar. It's always a pleasure to be part of the gang.
Honorable Abdul Katon too, you're most welcome to gang. We have met you.
Sorry, but here I am.
You're here.
Good morning, listeners.
Have you brought your ID as well? Because we are going to have ours renewed.
And actually, mine, I renewed it because I got a replacement.
Yeah.
Like 3 months ago.
Okay.
You have 29, I think.
Yeah, mine was also, I thought now.
No, sir.
But let's go to the executive director herself. So what's happening? Who has got to do what?
On the 27th of May 2025, the National Identification and Registration Authority began the mass enrollment and renewal exercise. The impacted persons are 15.8 million for renewal and 17.2 million who have never registered.
Just give that figure again. It's
15 renewal. Oscar, you are a teacher.
15.8 million
and 17.
Renewal, 17.2 million who have never registered. From our register, the people who've never registered mostly lie between the years of 0 to 15 years. We have 23 million who are above the age of 18, and we have about 4-point-something million who are below the age of 17.
Right.
On the register, we have 27.8 million people.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that is well short of what UBOS gave us from a recent census.
So the balance of that is about 17, 18 million.
Okay. So actually, my entire household is coming here today to
renew.
To renew, or I have some children who don't have, so they'll get
what
for
is
the
their
first
age?
Time.
Have they
as
been in
fathers.
Uganda?
Yes, they go
Are
to
you sure?
school, S5. That's 17 years.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, yes.
It's usually not common for people who are above the age of 20 not to have interacted with NERA at all.
Yeah.
So if for those who will be coming at that age, we'll pay particular attention to them.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, how are you rolling out this exercise?
Oscar, just a second, I need to understand. So, are you now registering everybody from
0 to 100?
Everybody.
Every single person.
So, at some point, do you see your numbers matching the ones of the census? Because if you register everyone, that's
we
what
are
it should be.
registering citizens.
Right.
So
Let me switch off your microphone.
2024.
Go on.
we are registering citizens. So they probably won't be a match for match figure, but they should align largely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And when did the exercise start?
On the 27th of May, which was Tuesday of this week.
This week.
We started with a pilot on May 2nd.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And will it end?
Yes, it shall. For sure, it shall.
Is there a deadline for it to end, or you're rolling it out as it should be?
It's a 6 to 10 months exercise.
Okay.
We expect to return to our offices after that period.
Oh.
Now we are at the parish level, but after that we should pull back and return. We're expected to appear at least twice, minimum twice,
At a center.
at the 10,594 parishes.
And the big question, can you afford to do that?
We have started well. Hope government has financed for this financial year. Hopefully next financial year we shall successfully negotiate.
I like the way you supervised when Honorable Ssemujju was in front of technology. You know, people for us from Nigeria, we're a bit slow. And I like the way you said, no, I don't like that fingerprint. Can you do it again? And so on. It was kind of difficult to work with Ssemujju. But
No, not at all.
Now I'm giving it from someone who was noticing. But do you have staff that are careful this time? I'm going to show you my registration. When I registered, I gave my name on the form, and the person who entered it on your computer gave me another name. So I've had struggles with passport, with banks, with affidavits. This time round, are your people careful to register correct names?
This time round we have a remedy in that you can go online and do it yourself and just come for taking of your biometrics, so that the blame game of it was NERA, it was not NERA, that story can change. That notwithstanding, at this time of the year, we are one of the largest employers. We have hired probably close to 12,000 young people. Average age may be anything between 20 and 25. And we trained them for a period of at least 1.5 months. That being said, we are also putting in place a mechanism to mark accuracy. So if a client complains that so-and-so seems to be picking the wrong data all the time, then we may have to, part ways with that young person.
Or train them better.
Or train them better.
The manager, our manager on Entebbe Road, I forget her surname, Afande Margaret. She's very helpful.
Namganga.
Yes, I remember. She's very, very helpful, very concerned. And I work in schools. Are you rolling out the same program in school? She's been very, very helpful to us schools on Entebbe Road.
We are working out the way we should do it in schools, because we did a school exercise in 2017 as NERA, and we gathered the fingerprints and faces of 10 million children and successfully issued NINs to about 8 million. The challenge
NINs, but not the card.
Yeah, because your card is issued only at the age of 16, so not all of them deserved. But the challenge we experienced at the time is Okay, I'll start with the simplest. What's the name of your child?
Yeah, if I say my child is Chirabo.
But she would reach and say, I want to be Justin Bieber.
Oh.
And she would give Nira the name Justin Bieber. So that was one of the... So we have had a lot of change of particulars of children. Some wanted to be pretty, others wanted to be flower, others wanted to be hero, I don't know, so many. That was the first category of risks. The second category of risks is where the parents didn't fill the form. One in many schools, the teacher presented as parent. So this time, as we think about the school program, we need to think long and hard about the time when the parent can be there with a child to take full accountability for the data collected.
Interesting. When she gave us the forms, we sent them home, and then they brought them back from home, and so we kind of mitigated that challenge. But I see what you mean. Yeah,
but you'd send the form, and they would also fill theirs with Justin Bieber.
Right. Challenges. So what challenges do you see ahead, Rosemary Ksembu?
Well, challenge is what we were all made for. We thrive in our different challenges. But one, there are things like roads. There are things like
we've just been talking about
rain.
Road.
There are things like there are the exogenous factors like those. Then there are issues like literacy for some people who can't read and write. Not many, maybe 10% of the population, but they are part of our population. Then there are things like sometimes the exercise gets politicized with maybe a politician saying, I'm the one who has brought Nira here. So please, welcome. Thank you.
Abdul, why are you looking at Emmanuel Tumwebaze?
It has to be politicians again.
Even Nira was brought by NRM.
Yeah, but for this one, it's a national service, so it's someone. So there are those challenges. Then there are technology challenges. Sometimes connectivity is not as good as it should be in certain places of the country. And then there are challenges of people who are still learning how to capture. But by and large, in the first week we have gathered 500,000 people have renewed, and we've captured about the new registrations have been slow because of something we realized a bit late. So that's it.
Yeah. 500,000, I guess, not so bad with an exercise that's just started.
Yeah.
Honorable Dombo, you nearly set off for Soroti. How do you think that exercise will go ahead in Soroti?
Well, as I came in this morning, I just got Captain Mike Mukula in his convoy driving Soroti. I believe he's going to have a very interesting exercise, given that he's the vice chairman of Eastern Uganda. This is a campaign period. He's going to interact with his people. But also,
so in campaign period, he's going to get people's IDs registered.
No, he can only make an advocacy. He can advocacy. He can only do advocacy. But I know whenever the leaders of the national resistance movement get an opportunity, they use it to promote themselves, but also promote government activities. So I believe Honorable Mike Mukula and the other leaders will be there, should use that as an opportunity to promote this exercise of mass enrollment, but also to tell the people about other programs which the NRM government has done, and also make their own promises, what they will do if they ever get re-elected. That's what politicians and politics is for.
Abdul, in Butende, is there a connection to begin with, or you are going to be Madame Ksembu's problem?
No, there's connection. But I told you that a couple of months ago, I had lost my national ID and I got a replacement. I don't know whether I'm
you
the
most
right...
likely got it at Parliament.
No. I went through the whole process. But I don't know whether I'm not the right person to talk about this because it's me. But I have to congratulate them. They really handled the exercise so professionally and so on. They're very courteous. You know, we started in Kololo and so on. I went through the whole process. That's what I say. I don't know whether it is because of me, but I was so much impressed because I met many other people who were there. And, you know, you could see the lady coming, please next, and so on. And there was a lot of orderliness there. And even when time came to pick, I had to go to Nakasero. And I really thought it's one of these institutions like a URSB, which, and then these people with the driving permit, they've really improved. I must congratulate you. I was really impressed. But we always have a challenge that people will not take this exercise seriously until the last minute. You know, they are going to wait until they say, well, they're about to close.
Yes.
Then that's when you see them flocking and so on. That's a challenge Ugandans have. So you need to take into account that it's going to be slow at the beginning. Then at the last minute, that's when you have, you know, a flood. But last time they did it at parish level, they were doing it very well, I think. I hope we don't have the sort of experience UBOS has had, you know, at the end of the exercise, and they were like, oh my God, what happened here and there and so on. Lastly, Oscar, we just need a central data bank where each and every government institution, you know, they are taking particulars here, there, and so on. Why don't we have one central data bank where if government wants anything from me, it is there? But passport has its own, NERA has its own, then another institution. Really, you make us run over and over again. And
you
so
want to
on.
register a party and look for signatures, you don't know where to prove them.
Yeah, you see, there should be one place, a one-stop center where we all go and say, if you want anything about Abdul Katon, here it is. Whether you are CID, whether you are passport office, Interpol, driving permit, and so on. I don't know whether you people are thinking about that.
Yeah, just hold on to respond yet. Benjamin, you're on microphone next. You and I, we are going to do ours at the end of the show.
Gladly.
Is yours like mine renew, or you are registering for the first time?
No, mine is renewal as well. And just like Honorable Abdu, I would like to congratulate Edie and her team for getting this exercise rolling, because it was quite an embarrassment to move around with IDs bearing expired dates, though, of course, by law. By the standards of Honorable Domo's team, it was normal. But and for me, the national ID is very important to me. One, of course, as a citizen, but two, because I was part of the team that burnt the midnight candle to get it moving when I was working in the initial project that started this with the late Honorable Aronda. And we were telling people that time that once you get your national ID, you will have sort of the 80% of your problems. That when you go to the bank, they will not ask you for many questions. You just present your card and everything will be done. Correct. That once you go to immigration to get your passport, you present your ID. But we have been having challenges that, and again, I think it's because of the compartmentalization, the way state agencies look at each one looks at itself as an independent government. You find people of immigration are confiscating people's IDs. They say it is our responsibility to verify citizenship. But how can you confiscate what you didn't issue? So I think it is very important. Yeah, I think it's very important that there's a lot of harmonization, and particularly in this exercise.
Even the money lenders take it as security. Yeah, in this exercise, to focus so much on issues of citizenship. I mentioned that it's very dear to me because even when I was doing my master's thesis, I focused so much on these things because of the experience I had in the initial period. My thesis was on statelessness.
So there are communities in Uganda that do not belong to Uganda, but they don't belong to any other country. So I think these questions need to be answered so that when a person gets a national ID, they will know that indeed I have passed the test of citizenship. And I will not be asked so many questions relating to my citizenship when I go to any other office. The other aspect that maybe Madam Idi could address us on is the people in diaspora, Ugandans in diaspora. What is the arrangement for them to be able to get their national IDs renewed? We have citizens that are in prison. What is the arrangement for them? We have had challenges. So many people come to me with questions for advisory on these matters of IDs. Replacement has been a problem. The Honorable Katon got his done so fast because yes, but especially people and at Kororo there has been a lot of efficiency on many because of the birth certificate and the rest. But in the other stations, it is a very big problem. When people lose their IDs or they get damaged, then you go to Shema. For example, I come from Bushenyi. You go to Bushenyi district, then they tell you we are correcting your data, we have to send it to Kororo. Then it takes months and months and months, and people miss opportunities because when you have no national ID, there are so many things you cannot do. So I hope that in this exercise, we are going to see a lot of improved efficiency, not just at the center, but in the other stations across the country. The other aspect is, yes, replacement and corrections, like people who have errors on their names and then they want or dates of birth and things of that nature, to have it corrected. It also takes a toll, especially if you are not doing it from Kororo. The other aspect which has been mentioned, but maybe I would like to emphasize, is the aspect of the central data bank, that these biometrics we are taking, when, for example, they have collected fingerprints for a person who has committed a crime, it shouldn't be so hard to locate this person when you have collected the biometrics of every citizen. So we hope that there is going to be, and I believe there has been a lot of interlinkages with the CID, with the rest, so that we are able to eliminate these challenges of failing to trace people who have broken into people's homes, people's cars, and things of that nature. Yes.
Good one. Fingerprints. Honorable Ssemujju, any challenges you envision in our village, Nigeria?
I haven't interacted with the constituency on this exercise, because I usually pick a lot of information from the local administrators, the chairman LOCs and councillors. So does that mean the awareness is still low? Because the exercise has just started. Okay. So I haven't interacted with them to give her feedback. But I will want Oscar to ask her to help those who are listening. When I went to change, it was actually change of name. The leader told me that there are things they were allowing people to change. A name you can, but you can't change your date of birth. So I will want her to explain in this exercise
that you can change your date of birth.
You cannot. They told me that you cannot change.
But why would you wish to change your date of birth?
No. On the ID, you may have made a mistake.
The recording of your date.
You may have made a mistake, and you want.
Now going to be very shocked.
That dates of birth are changeable.
So if someone made a mistake with the date of so if someone has made a mistake in the initial registration on the date of birth, what do they do? Because they told me that you can't change. For my name is okay, and they changed because I had made actually I didn't make a mistake. Nganda is my father, but Nganda is not appearing on any of my academic document. So going for nomination, I had to remove Nganda, but I have used it all through. So I had to go back to the name as it is on the academic papers. And they told me that's okay, as long as you go through this exercise, I don't know, was it a publication in a newspaper and so on and so forth?
Did poll.
Yeah. So the people who are listening and are in the same situation, when I turn up at your desk for this particular exercise and I am renewing my ID, do you allow me to correct mistakes that may have arisen in the first registration?
I kind of asked that as well, she said.
Yeah, and finally, for me, I think the problem we have is not a problem of NIRA, it's a problem of the Dombos who are running government. These exercises are very expensive. I remember either the first budget presented by NIRA was about 700 or 300 and something.
The total budget is 666 billion.
Yeah, so you're going to spend 600 billion shilling. I remember when the exercise started, they trained the people. They actually deployed the equipment. At that time, they were deploying almost village by village. The Dombos recalled them from the field after registration because they were registering specifically, I think, for elections. So they recalled the equipment, they demobilized the staff they had trained, and we had spent, that money we spent more than 380 billion shilling. Then they went to do the exercise in schools, which was also wasn't done properly. We spent another about 100 billion. Now we are going to spend another 600 billion. So Dombo should tell us, instead of telling us of how Mukula and his convoy are in Soroti, whether you have yourselves learned any lessons before you go to NIRA, that you need to do this exercise at once. And you don't keep spending money as if you are a rich country, because you borrow to waste. Sooner than later, you'll hear them recording in NIRA. You come back. Now we'll do it after elections.
But Honorable, if I could just make an interjection. Honorable Ssemujju, you should know that whatever we're doing is a function of technology. And progressively, technology is evolving. Just after you have concluded this exercise, tomorrow there could come more modified and easier ways of identifying people and tracing thieves and collecting data, which may be very important to integrate. So you cannot prevent.
You did not hear. Maybe you didn't pay attention. They are now registering everybody. At that time, after registering 18 and above, you recalled them. Then you started fidgeting of how they will go back in the field. I am only asking you to pick lessons like they are themselves doing.
No, that we shall do, but progressively, even you may be required to re-register should progressive technology become.
Dombo, you don't need to respond to that one.
No, he has no answer.
No, he has picked the lesson.
Let us come back to you finally, Ms. Rosemary Sembo.
Thank you.
So Abdul's question was very, very important. Will we ever have complete registration? Disregarding what Honorable Dombo is saying, that you might call us tomorrow. And also, in addition to some of the questions they've asked, what does one lose if they are not registered? What does one lose if they don't have a national ID? I know that you cannot now open a bank account and so on and so forth. And I hope someone at NIRA is looking at X to respond to questions. Some people are asking about LC1 letter and so on, diplomatic missions. Yeah.
And Oscar, sorry, she also needs to explain if I am renewing and registering for the first time, whether the requirements are the same.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll start with the question of correction of date of birth, because you can't change your date of birth. You were born on a certain day. It's a fact and an event. Even I am born again, but that doesn't mean that the date when I was born, I came out of my mother's womb changed. So it's called. So the correction of errors for date of birth must be submitted, supported by documentation that is historic. And I'll give you an example. He's talked about his academic documents. We looked at his academic documents and realized that, yes, previously he referred to himself as Ssemujju. Yes. Now, someone comes to tell you, they come with a S4 certificate reading 1995. Then they tell you they were born in 1992. Meaning that they did S4 when they were 3 years.
They call these days, they call it Nigeria.
So you are consistently dealing with that sort
Uganda.
of adulteration of information. So we ask, it's not that you cannot correct your date of birth, but we will ask you to bring documents as close as possible to the date when you were born. So I'm telling you, sometimes there's a lot of comedy that we experience at NIRA. Some people were studied while they were in their mother's wombs. So when NSSF said you can get things at 45 years, everybody now became 45. Even the 33 were trying to become 45. When they said that the elderly can get at 80, even the 60-year-olds wanted to become 80. When children of this football, they say 17 years. Even a 29-year-old is 17 years. So it's the
You have been.
yes. So what we ask of you is to bring there are two remedies. One of the reasons we are registering everybody now is even the babies. We are even emphasizing now birth registration in hospitals. Is let us get the fact of your birth as close to the event as possible, so that you don't doctor it or play around with it. Number one. Two, if it has already happened and the errors were there, please bring the documentation that draws you as close as possible to your event of birth. I will move on now to Central Data Bank, which is another feature that is. We have 99 organizations, including Passport Office, that connect to NIRA. 99. I do not know of another institution of government that has 99 institutions that connect, verify, access, and use data. We do 6 million verifications a month.
99 include government and non-private.
Banks, money lenders,
Airtel,
that sort of thing. So, in essence, I think people verify but also need other information, which is within their statutes. I don't know. But the fact is that we give Passport Office our data. We give driving permits. Actually, Passport Office and driving permits improve their service after the ability to access our data in completeness. So there is a central data bank. We have 147 fields about you, which include your father, your mother, your spouses, your etc., etc. So in essence, we have the richest database on who a Ugandan is. I'll then go to the fact of statelessness. I do not think that there is statelessness. The challenge we have had with communities is, I'll give an example of Maragoli. Maragoli is not listed in the 65 tribes of the Constitution. That is well within the purview of the honorable members of parliament present here. That notwithstanding, they can be naturalized. But people feel that citizen by descent is the only right one. So when you say you have to be citizen by naturalization, no, there are no implications. If you look at your nin and my nin, whether you are naturalized, you cannot say this is a doctor or this is a Maragoli. No.
But your citizenship by naturalization can be scrapped. But your citizenship by descent cannot be scrapped.
You're not using my
Okay.
No, you just respond and then...
He says the citizenship by naturalization can be scrapped, but I think the circumstances can be revoked are not circumstances of... You're not revoked just because you want to be revoked. One, you can revoke it yourself. Citizens by descent revoke their citizenship when they go to other countries. So there is nobody...
That's by choice.
I do agree.
Yes.
It's by choice. But even by naturalization, it is usually when you have committed a crime or something like that.
But you see, why should you? Because we're all citizens and so on.
Very well.
People want the
So where the
decent,
Marabouts, where did
whether
they
I've
come
committed
from?
a crime, I'm a Ugandan.
Yeah.
Correct.
To go back.
So what I propose is that well within the purview
unless Trump
of
has-
parliamentarians, we can enrich the law and constitution to take care of those concerns.
So you're
As-
saying that's not within your remit?
Exactly. We just have to
Okay.
implement the law as it's given to us.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I'll go to the issue of diaspora. On 1st July 2025, we'll start diaspora. Because it didn't make sense to first go out of the country when there are 15.8 million somewhere in this country who need to be renewed. So that journey is also going to start at all our embassies. And we are working out ways of, even for those countries where we don't have an embassy. The assertion that replacement is only happening very well in Kampala is not correct. But it's good you mentioned that you did the first exercise. 10 years later is when we've got the new set of equipment. I would ask anyone on this phone to give me their 10-year-old phone on this table.
Their form.
Your phone of 10 years ago.
Oh, Ssemujju keeps them.
Yeah. But not over 10 years.
No. So in essence, NIRA had equipment and technology for 10 years ago to work in an environment at the speed that it worked in 10 years ago. So really it's, and when the entity was created, up to date, it has always been at 50%, staffing. But it must run like a hero, jump like a, so in essence, I think sometimes we are forced to cut our cloth according to our coat, according to our cloth.
Are we, now that you have new technology, are we going to see more efficient?
Well,
You were a candidate, or I don't know if you were down there. Okay,
Yeah, you were.
somebody was a candidate down there.
We are about
You will
to.
testify
Yeah.
and tell us. And
But
we should improve.
Benjamin, she did tell us the time frame. So
Yeah.
and she's given us the registrations we want. So we'll measure it by that.
Should people pay something when they're doing the exercise?
Renewal is free
I have not
Yeah.
paid Dombo.
and new registration is free. Ekyo kankiddemu mu Luganda. Okwewandiisa bujja kwa
After
bwereere.
Uganda, please kyogere mu lusogo.
Okwewandiisa kwa bwereere, okuzza bujja nakwo kwa bwereere. Naye bw'oba olina ky'okyusa awo ojja kusasula $200. Naye ekyokyusa bwe kibanga ensobi yali yaffe,
Yeah.
if the error was for NIRA, you do not pay anything in keeping
I'm in that
with the law.
category.
If
Continue
you
with
didn't
the
pay
question.
anything,
No. Oscar Goli wabiri.
I mean,
for the people in prison,
uh-huh.
the people in prison, we have been working with Luzuria Prison for the last 2 years, I think. There was something that happened in the last election where we were compelled by a court order to ensure that everybody in prison needs to be registered, and we've been ensuring that happens. We started with the biggest prisons in Kampala and have made progress towards that end. We shall also deploy during this exercise for the people in prison. I think I have
So
fairly
finally, what is
benefits.
your
What are the
message?
benefits of
Yes.
the ID?
Yeah.
Well,
I.e., what do you lose if you don't have NI? And you've already said you have
I will start from the
99
global level.
organizations.
Sustainable Development Goal 16.9 requires every person to have a legal identity. In Uganda, we're at 61-62%, depending on the census results. But there is a 39% that must be captured in keeping with the international conventions to which we are party. Secondly, someone mentioned statelessness. Nobody needs to be stateless. But an ID if you're above 16 years. But for everyone who we register and we find to be true to being a Ugandan, we issue a national identification number. Just as your parents give you a name, and you know Wafumbe, even somebody, Uganda's identification of Ugandanness is that national identification. one of the reasons that we were removed from the FATFA, that area of laundering, is because it is now easier to identify a person in Uganda. So national identification number is the same across all sectors. So it has assisted to a great extent know your customer. You are not able to change, or Kwebula today you are something, then tomorrow you are something else.
Just before you finish off, there are some funny messages coming through.
Yes, please.
Susan says, my son and I plan to set off my renewal exercise. Our local leaders communicated that due to fewer machines, they will for now start with political leaders. How prepared are they?
Wow.
How prepared are they for this?
You know.
Then Joseph tells you here that the pre-registration portal is not functional.
I will do it. I will do it here before I leave.
Then another one tells you, why should national IDs expire? Okay, so give us a final word.
I asked her for fresh registration, because for me the requirement was the ID.
There's not
For fresh registration, what do I come with?
You come with an ID of your parent, if they are alive, or your grandparent. The Constitution talks about 6 people who are critical for your citizenship: your mother's mother, your mother's father, your father's father, your father's mother,
Your judge.
your judges, those 4, and your parents. So any descendant of those 4 people can help identify you if they have a name. So
My daughter is coming
Senga,
with a passport.
no, you come because we've identified 60% of Ugandans. We require at least one of those, one of the descendants of those 6 people
Be there.
to identify you, the ID. Then the second requirement is an LC letter stamped by a DISO or a GISO. So this one is simply saying that yes, you are actually a resident of this area.
The birth certificate also work?
It is an addition. It is optional, but not mandatory.
I want to thank you so much for the information you've given. ED, Rosemary Ksembo, I know that you're still here for a little while, and your team is here. I'm informing you, Chigo household is all coming here to get their IDs renewed or to get a new one. Benjamin, Katana and I will also get ours. Emmanuel Dombo fears to say it on air, but he's also going to get his done as well. So
Part of the other one,
the political leaders.
Actually, I did mine yesterday at the NRM Secretariat.
No, but yesterday
coming to the PFF.
Yesterday I was in Kawempe.
Yesterday you were in Kawempe.
I went to Kate Felao or Falao.
Yeah.
There was a NIRA center. I went to Mbogo Primary School. There was a center. I went to KCC Boys, and there were no more people. I mean, that is. I think they need to.
You're saying it's happening.
It's happening, and not for just politicians.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one is on our end. Rueza, Chengera, Never.
That's okay. I haven't reached there, but I'm sure they are also going to reach. They are required by law to reach each of the parishes
of Uganda.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So,
this message, somebody just sent it to me. My issue for ED NIRA is that they went to schools and enrolled children, but many made mistakes. Today, to correct those mistakes, you require about 200,000. Why would the law protect children? Why would the law protect children in contracts, yet they can't be protected under NIRA? They registered as kids. Why make parents pay mistakes for kids under NIRA?
I can tell you, Abdul, she has already answered. Category.
With the school and
But
so you the school and NIRA should
no, there's evidence. Because they gave us the forms to fill in. If you filled in correctly and then misaddressed, then there's the evidence.
It's reckless to say that because the children made mistakes, they should be let off. I think children should be taught who their ancestry is, Children should be taught.
They are not interested.
Then that's a challenge that we need to own as Ugandan parents.
But we don't have to.
I have here health.
Any child below the age of 16, there is the consequence for government for this is payment. But if you, even when they misbehave at school, they are put in a punishment tree or they are suspended. There is a cost for misdemeanors.
True. But someone here, it says Health Equity says most of their people say NIRA never accepts liability, so most likely the victims will have to pay. I'd like to tell you that for me, NIRA has accepted the liability, and as Abdul has been shown, so I will not have to pay, and this is going to be proved today.
Well, in health...
Oscar, you're struggling not to pay, but...
No.
You will have to pay.
I'm not speaking about me. I'm talking about all the other people listening.
So HIPAA, or Health Equity, the good thing about the things we do is that they are a science. You can go on the system and see those who change their particulars without paying and those who change their particulars without when paying.
Yeah, paid.
Yeah. So if
and you seem to know them because they do call themselves HIPAAs. I
know them. I interact a lot with the civil society who fight for the rights of Ugandans, or sometimes their rights, whichever way you look at it. But yes, I do know them.
I thank you very much, E.D. Rosemary Kisembo, for appearing on Gang. We're going to take an early break.
Thank you.
And after the break, we will go to the national apology.
Okay, thank you.
We'll come back from the break. We were listening to the ED of NIRA in a studio, taking that very place. I have a young person on Gang. You're most welcome to Gang, Mr. Duncan Abigava.
Thank you, Oscar. And,
is that the correct way of saying it?
Yeah, absolutely. Duncan Abigava.
Duncan Abigava.
Thank you, Oscar, and good morning, our
you have a young person in the studio. Is called Emmanuel Tumwebaze.
So, Duncan, I've seen you on social media a lot. What do you do?
Well, I just returned from school in St. Petersburg, Russia. Before I was working with the Dombos, I had worked at State House and the Ministry of ICT. Actually, I thought I would see Mr. Fono Pondo here. He was my supervisor when I worked at the Ministry of ICT. So I just returned from school. I'm supporting the coffee sector at the moment. I'm among the people promoting the famous...
Platinum Diamond.
The famous coffee hub in Ntungamo, and I've actually carried you some coffee to prove to you that the coffee is there in Ntungamo and it is work in progress.
I also believe you are NRM, because finding an NRM person for me is so difficult. And Dombo will remind me all the time that the NRM is everywhere. But to get NRM on radio, so it's one of the reasons I invited you, more for NRM than the coffee.
Yes, that's true. I'm an NRM person. I've been one of the...
Can you be part of NRM factor? I mean, Ntungamo Coffee and you're not NRM.
Ntungamo Coffee are not NRM. And Duncan knows that.
Yes, I'm an NRM person for a long time. I worked with the government for 10 years, like I mentioned earlier. And currently I'm aspiring to be the vice chairperson for NRM Western Region to unseat Dr. Baryomunsi, a former gangster. I see Dombo's reaction is not so welcoming.
It's not encouraging you.
It's not so encouraging. But
I am with him.
That is expected. That is also expected of you, Hon Ssemujju. People look at us as young people and so forth. But I'm 36 years, and I think when Honorable Ssemujju, Honorable Katon, and Honorable Dombo ran for member of parliament, they were not even 36 years.
No, I was 37.
You were 37.
Yes.
I think Honorable Dombo was younger. Exactly. So I'm due for this role. I'm due for the position.
That one, no contest.
Yeah.
Okay, it will be interesting how far you go against Dr. Baryomunsi. But let's start with you, Honorable Ssemujju. The president came up, gave an apology. He read it together with Mrs. Museveni, and they apologized. The way I first saw it, I thought they apologized to the Baganda and the nation, but Moses Beranga has taken quite a lot of time to explain to me that he was not apologizing to the Baganda, he was not apologizing to Ugandans, he was apologizing just the way we do in church. I'm not yet so sure what's how Moses was describing it. I don't know if you understood.
Yeah, and I agree with him.
Okay.
There was no apology.
Oh.
I watched the video. First, if he was apologizing as a head of state, I don't think they would jointly do it with his wife, because the wife became a minister recently. So the failures of Museveni as a president cannot be jointly shared. Maybe if you only want to confirm that the wife and Museveni have been ruling Uganda jointly.
I think Honorable Ssemujju, because he's not a Christian, he's not conversant with the concept of a Trinity.
But Oscar,
I had not thought about that.
The text that both of them were reading, you actually saw Museveni struggling, sometimes stammering, and then the wife would read the word. I think Museveni was there essentially to raise the profile of our daughter's church and function, not because he went there to apologize or to do something else. You see, Museveni has placed his children fairly well. One is supposed to head the army. I think the area where he has been missing is the church. So he has a daughter who has become a bishop. So as your brother heads the army, you go and lead the church. The mother is in education. That's what I saw in Kolo, not Museveni, who was. First of all, Museveni is a very stubborn person. I remember one time he came to Makerere and we were asking him to test. The man refused, so we were shouting at him as he was shouting back. So when we kept quiet, he said, now that I have defeated you, now I can test. So you deal with a very stubborn person. Even in old age, he continues being stubborn. But because parents love their children, this looks like something that was prepared by Bishop. Is she Archbishop or Bishop Domo, you who work for Museveni? Is the daughter Archbishop or Bishop? You have no job if you don't know.
I'm not a member of that faith, so I wouldn't know.
She's a pastor.
She's a pastor.
At now you have said you don't know, now you are. So whichever capacity she has, I think she prepared this for the parents to come and
endorse her.
Yeah, so that's why Museveni had trouble reading. Maybe
some of the words, okay.
Yeah. So there was no apology to anyone. But there was a Museveni guided to read what appeared like an apology as a way of raising the profile of that particular event, but also the church, the church of his daughter. That's what I saw.
Okay. Yeah. Honorable Katon.
First of all, I don't think the president had read that document before, because I could see him like struggling reading it. And you know, it's a little bit unusual because President Museveni moves away from even written speeches, official written, and
even a taxi.
I said, by this one, I don't believe in it. These people, they write this. So sometimes when you're writing a document for President Museveni, he can disown it. This particular one, there was no opportunity to disown, much as he could have disagreed with the content of it, but he was given the document to read. However, because I watched him read the text, but I also watched when he was speaking off cuff. There are two different things. When he was talking about, you know, why they have not allowed, he called them chaplains in the army barracks and so on.
They're actually there. He banned it.
He told me this. He said that this is just absolute. He used some word. What? They were not value addition, so we couldn't allow and so on. He went actually on the offensive, and that is the typical President Museveni, because he what he believes in, he says it. This one you could see, and no, there was no emotion in him. He was so flat. You need to look at his face, and somebody just ambushed him, gave him. And then he read it. So whatever was in that statement, I think it was more about the author than the people, than President Museveni who read it. And remember, these are born again. You know, born again have the only of thinking and so on, which is a bit not ordinary like Odomba and me or other people. But about confessions and apologies, Ssemujju knows this. For us, our face, we call it tauba.
Yeah.
Tauba is an English word where...
Patents.
Yeah, patents. You know, you have to do it and so on. And I think the one who wrote, the author of that document, that's what he had in, he or she had in mind.
So you think the author wanted to apologize to the Baganda?
With whatever content was there, that's what the author had in mind.
Right. Benjamin Katana, you have brought even the idea of Trinity, and Ssemujju has taken it further, saying that even conquer the religion.
Yeah. And it's very accurate.
Really?
First of all, you there are many dimensions to it. One is that when he's speaking to when you look at the whole idea, that church has been conducting regional, I don't know if they are called conventions.
Yeah, this is what Moses told me. Regional missions across the country.
But these missions,
and in these missions, the parents, like Christians do, while in prayer, ask God to forgive them their sins.
And they are close to ecumenical. Only that I have not seen the Muslims participating. But you see the Anglican bishops are involved. So you ask yourself if this church of the daughter is part of the Anglican establishment. But when they are advertising pastors, they advertise the bishops of the Anglican church. So I believe it is largely another avenue of extending the patronage network. And the Pentecostal church now is quite a big constituency. And so when he speaks to them in that sense, he's also scoring some political points. But I also want to agree that I don't think this was a mere culpa moment. In Runyankore, the Catholics say, that you accept, I'm a sinner, you accept your sins, but repentance, but when, that's what they're saying, the mere culpa. But when you are confessing your sins, for example, if you are to, what sins has you committed against the Baganda now? And there has been a debate about the many young people, political prisoners that are in jail, many young people that have been tortured and are recovering. If you are coming to make a confession, he should have gone ahead to order for the release of all political prisoners at Kororo. That would have been evidence to show that indeed he has reached his poor moment. His Damascus point had come. But I don't think this was it. But two, is that Museveni might be a leader, might be a general, might be many things, but he's also a human being. In the sense that human beings, and someone has mentioned that normally he drifts away from the script, but when it is the children that are involved, your children, and especially you are an 80-year-old person, you tend to please them more than you want to even do what you think is the right thing. Especially when you have children that are bickering over your estate.
Before you die.
And you must keep them guessing as to who the heir is. Sometimes on the smallest of things you want to make concessions and let them get away with whatever they want to get away with.
When there is an avenger.
Well, yeah, but also the other thing that I have observed about him is that many times for him he's not bothered. He's not bothered by what people who don't support him think about him. He's bothered by what people who support him think about him. So for people who don't support him, he can easily rubbish it. I say that is, these are disoriented, they are blah, blah, blah. But there is a constituency that he always wants to present himself as a man on a mission, as a man that is doing good things, but who is being let down by the Emmanuel Tumwebaze here and the rest. And so when he even attempts to speak in that direction, he's trying to project an image to his supporters that he's a humble human being. He's even not taking responsibility for his mistakes, but for the mistakes of his people like Emmanuel Tumwebaze and Duncan and the rest. So I think he was also using that platform to communicate to his supporters that I'm a humble human being. There could have been mistakes, but not done by myself. But as a leader, I take responsibility and I apologize.
Yes. Let me go to Duncan here. The apology.
Two things here. Number one, like Hon Ssemujju said, the president did not seem to own the document, neither the words are on the document. It looked so strange to him, and it was very uncharacteristic of him. He's not a man who is easily intimidated in two things, but being the daughter, he had to succumb. But apology without action, it's no apology. Like Katana here has said, if the president was genuine in his apology, it would be followed by some reforms. For example, he would have talked about, yes, Honorable Dombi is laughing. I keep telling them that we are coming in to reform the NRM. Honorable Dombi is in the...
If I were NRM, his opening remarks have won me now.
His opening remarks have won you.
Honorable Dombi is in the NRM of yesteryears. The status quo, which we are now trying to rearrange. Say, Honorable Dombo, you guys have grown. Don't leave us with problems. We must coexist. We must coexist with the Ssemujju Ngandas. We must coexist with the Katana group in Kavuri. So if the president was genuine about his apology, there should have been reforms. He would have talked about, because the issue, he said we apologize to Baganda. There are all these questions about Ed Mutwe and others. People call them political prisoners. He would have made a comment on those and other emerging issues that are causing problems in the central region. But he would have talked about this JAT that people keep talking about, that is the one committing some of these crimes and so forth. Made some changes in command and things, but the apology was not backed by any action, so it was just passing wind. So it is like Honorable Ssemujju here coming to us in Nigeria. I've been his voter for the last so many years. I've lived in Nigeria since I left university, and telling us that he's apologizing for the bad roads. And the roads are not done.
Overstaying.
He hasn't yet overstayed per se. But Ssemujju coming to us in China, and he says that he apologizes for the bad roads, and there is not even an inch of the road that is done. It is as good as not saying anything.
Or not when I'm with you.
Exactly. So number two, there's something that Katana has hinted on, and Honorable Dombo, the Avenger thing. One of the...
Are you PLU?
No, I'm not PLU, okay, for the record. But you can see there are some bit of conflict. He hosted one of the actors recently. One of the contenders says, some people are in the basement running Runyankore. The other now organizes a function where he says, we apologize for putting you in the basement. So there is that angle to it. One talks about Bachwezi, and says one says Bachwezi, our ancestors, they guide us, they do what. The other comes and says we must do away with these ungodly things and so forth. So there is also that contestation that should be brought into perspective.
Thank you. So, Honorable Dombo, you are speaking. Pardon?
People who are not NRM are allowed to vote.
in the election.
Yeah, because
in
I want to give him my vote against Waliomunsi.
That he can become his supervisor.
So that he becomes Dombo's supervisor.
You can become his manager. Oscar.
But he's a young man, but he has said a few things. I saw some priests responding in that manner, saying that if you know this, you said you know about the Catholic Church. When you go to confession and you apologize, you mention the crime, and some priests have said that, and yet this apology was lacking in what exactly for.
First of all, I know President Museveni is not a Catholic, so issues of faith are doctrinal.
I've never seen so many eyes on Emmanuel Dombo. And people are looking at you and silent.
And the issues are doctrinal. So what the priests said, I read part of what Father Msala said. But I said to President Museveni, why do people confide in priests when they go to confess and they do it privately? Because that's a doctrinal issue. It is done in the Catholic Church. Yet, in the many faith,
maybe point of information.
Just a moment. In the many faith,
let the man.
In many faith, people go before God.
In the Anglican Church, we do it in the open. You give testimony in the open. But they call it okwetisa.
No, Catholic Church, you go to the booth.
You got the booth where the priest is. There is a reason why they chose to do that. But let us look. To me, who is a Christian and a believer, when you go to the Bible, you can see King David. President Museveni is not the first person who confesses his sin. And by the way, I haven't met President Museveni to have a discussion with him, to have a depth understanding of why and how it came to this. But reading a copy of what he read before the church, reading what President Museveni read before the church, you see that he did it on his own behalf as a person. He did it on behalf of his family. He did it on behalf of the people he governs with, and on behalf of the country that he leads. In the church, when you go to pray, I don't know how it is done in Islam, but for us every morning when you go to church, or whenever you pray, and the Bible says pray without ceasing. In the Islamic faith, they say pray 5 times a day. During prayer, you do 3 things. The first thing is that you acknowledge and thank God for the gifts, one of life and the things he has done for you. The 3, you repent of your sin, which you could have committed even between that short period, between that prayer and the last time you prayed. Then thirdly, you pray so that God can offer you more blessings and gifts. So to me, I know that President Museveni was doing the ritual that we do every day when we go to church. But because he's a president of Uganda, because he's a president of Uganda, he has to elevate this to a higher height, and he demonstrates by being an example to the rest of the people. Just a few days ago, President Museveni was meeting the family of Commander Eregu, who commanded UPA, and really almost he killed many UPDF or NRA soldiers. He met the family of Tito Okello and all those people he fought with when he was in the bush. He has met the family of President Obote, who he fought with when he was in the bush himself, and President Obote was. He came on radio and apologized for the death of Zebra, who the UPDF killed accidentally. So this is not a new and isolated thing that President Museveni is doing, but looking at the positive side of it, that we must see that, like the young man said, this is the trend that we should go. Let each of you go back to your places and apologize to the people you have offended. That would be a better thing to be talking about than discussing whether Museveni meant this or didn't mean it. Me, I haven't met him. I haven't asked him. I don't know why he said it. But using common sense, you do say that this is the right thing to do, and we should emulate him because it is biblical. It is also common sense, and it is a good thing to do for humanity. And once you have done this, like this young man has said, Mr. Gava, I want to tell you that in the recent elections, the young people have taken over.
That's why you should actually be...
The young people in the Butaleja. The young man who was elected as chairman of the movement is a student of UCU doing law. He's a chairman of NRM. And this is now, we must go to nurture him, but also we must give respect. We must also give respect that the young people are emerging, so we must help them to emerge and take full responsibility. But even when you go to parliament, Hon Ssemujju a few years ago was there amongst the youngest, but he's now among the oldest. The parliament has young people. So, in recognizing that this is happening, President Museveni, whatever he has done in this country is legacy. Now he has come up to say, let us heal.
NUP has young people.
Let us heal and mend fences. And for him, he has communicated to his God other people's views notwithstanding, because it is him who said it. For us, one there, I wasn't even invited for the prayer service in Kololo, but at least he communicated with God. The people of Uganda have heard. Let them take leave.
Dombo, I thought only the wife was the one communicating to God. Even Museveni has started.
No, he does very often.
But they better make God.
But one time we told Oscar, one time President Museveni joked. He said that when the Mama Janet wanted to go and contest, she received a revelation from God. But God said God did not care to invite him to be around when the message was being delivered. So, that was humorous. But
Honorable Katon, to have final word on this.
Well, I think we are reading too much. To me, the way I see things, it was more about the author of that message. And the author of that message, the author of the confession, if you may call it so, had a message, and that message is out there.
Absolutely.
How we interpret it will remain to everybody's sense of judgment. Though in my honest view and well considered opinion, it had nothing to do with President Museveni.
Right. So before we go for the break, let's start on some legalese and political. Honorable Nalukola, thrown out of Parliament. Honorable Katuntu, did you expect that?
You see, in a court of law, there is no draw. There is always a winner. And elections are such that sometimes we may make one or two silly mistakes which may be interpreted by court as what we call electoral offense. And anybody can jump on that electoral offense because you just need only one action and one electoral offense. And the elections are nullified. So, did I expect that? If evidence was there. I am only surprised how fast it came. The quality of the judgment itself is not that one to talk about anyway, though. Because to me, if it is this sort of contentious election and which has attracted a lot of public attention, the judge should have been so much thorough in analyzing the evidence before him so that anybody reading that judgment would come to a conclusion. But he seems to have nullified the judgment on two grounds. The election on two grounds. If I've read the summary of the judgment, I've not read the entire judgment. One, that there was a disenfranchisement of 16,004. However, when you look at the facts, how did it arise? Which I think he did not go into. One, the Electoral Commission nullified those partial elections because, one, there had been more votes than sometimes even the registered voters on those particular polling stations. There was evidence of bulk staffing and so on. So that alone, and one party who was the petitioner was the one to get it over that, but then he jumped on it. it's a little bit contradictory. To me, he would have gone into the detail. What happened? How did this arise? Which he doesn't go into in detail. Then the other one was about the electoral fence. I think that Honorable campaign.
Campaign on the day.
Or on the day.
At a school.
At a school. I'm not so sure whether that is an electoral fence or it's a breach of the regulations and so on. But anyway, whatever said, technically you can throw out a member of parliament because the law is on your side, but does it change the political fortunes of anybody in that particular constituency? And to me, I thought people would be working towards, okay, there's an election in the next 1 year. How do we rearrange ourselves? Or you anger the voter such that at the next election, they are ready to come up and say, by the way, this is our choice and so on. What I also think, finally, before I get off the microphone, is that, one, there is not going to be a by-election because they have issued already a notice of appeal. By the time you dispose of that appeal, I can see would be within the 6 months within which you cannot hold an election. And if I were a strategist of any political player in that place, I would be looking for 2026.
Let's stop for a quick break and we'll discuss it further after the break. We'll come back from that very quick break. We have yet another lawyer in the studio who is also NUP treasurer. Same question as I asked Abdul. Were you surprised by the judgment?
Thank you. I think Abdul has pretty much broken down the whole thing. Like he mentioned, when a matter is before court, it can take either way. So surprised or not surprised is a hard question to answer. But what has created a lot of debate about this particular case is the context. The context beginning from the manner in which the elections were conducted, the polling day, what transpired, and I'm glad he talked about the defranchisement and what occasioned it. Because at those particular polling stations, even the exercise of tallying was disrupted by gangs which were led by 2 ministers, guarded by police. So the question has been, how can you, because now the affected person in this judgment is Narukora and the people of Kawempe North, the victims, again, also victimized by court. So that cannot be justice. And I think that is...
we call it double jeopardy.
Double jeopardy. Have been punished twice. So I think that's where the problem has been. Because even when you look at issues like campaigning on the day, on the polling day, you know what they're accusing him of doing? That he told some people, he shook hands with some people and told them, Temuria Rukemumanyi Gabantu. So that was construed to mean campaigning. So there have been a lot of questions, and while we always demand that matters be handled expeditiously, I think in this particular case, it was more than, they say justice delayed is justice denied, but also justice rushed is justice crushed. That in a matter of a few days, even when the lawyers would go and they tell them tomorrow, they were even surprised when they were called to come and receive the judgment. And because they thought they still had like a week for the judgment to come out, and they were told the judgment is ready and we are delivering it on email. That's what I heard from the lawyers. So there are so many questions relating to what transpired. And the question, like has been mentioned, and many people have been asking that, why is Narukora? Why doesn't NUP encourage Narukora not to appeal and go to the polls immediately so that people can vote for him overwhelmingly. But we all know what transpired in that by-election. We know how many people were injured. We know how many people went to jail. We know how much money was spent on that exercise, both by the Electoral Commission and the parties. So it would not be wise to rush into an election when you have 6 months. Because when you have 6 months to the general elections, what will you achieve? But number two is that the Honorable Narukora has a responsibility as a person who was voted for by the people. Once, when you go to campaign, the people say, we are giving you our votes, but will you protect them? Because rigging has also become an issue. So he has a responsibility to fight for their victory up to the very end. And the appropriate avenue, whether you like it or not, is the Court of Appeal. But also it will give... So
is that what you're going to do?
Yes, he has already put in a notice of appeal. And I think that is the next course of action. By implication, he will remain representing the people until the Court of Appeal makes a decision.
Why did he have to put it in very early? Could I put it in at the end of June?
Well, I think I am not part of the team that was handling his matter, but I believe that is just the initial stage. Then there is the memorandum and the rest. So I believe that they have a good strategy that they will follow through. But the whole judgment has left more questions than answers as to whether indeed the court acted in the interest of justice or in the interest of political expedience.
Okay, some listeners are struggling with our online platforms, but there's a listener here who says there's online radio box, so try that one. Duncan Abigava, people on X, on Twitter, formerly X, formerly Twitter, saying, what have you given Duncan Abigava with that kind of laugh? And then the other one said, this is Isaac Twesije. When Duncan Abigava was laughing, I thought it was a technical glitch in the studio. Tell him to refrain from over-laughing. So I have warned you, Duncan Abigava, from over-laughing. But on to the microphone. Narukola was... Yes. Were you surprised as well? Was it worthy?
No. I was not surprised because... what Honorable Dombo and the team at the NRM Secretariat are trying to do is what the white man calls to save face. Because
necessarily?
There has been this talk of a lot of money pumped into the election. None of us, I think, has the actual figure, but speculation puts it at 1.5 billion. Some people have mentioned 2 billion.
By NRM?
By NRM. So when you have invested over $1 billion or 2 in an election, a smaller by-election, and then you lose it, and then you also have people who were just thumping, deploying members, when even the law, I think the law does not allow any weapon, let it be a knife, inside a polling station. And then you have people deploying members inside the polling station on the polling day. And then you have all these...
Of a small by-election.
Small by-election. And then you lose that by-election. And you also have the president to come and he made some statement about the election. You see that there is nobody in NRM, right from the secretariat to the presidency, who was willing to accept this defeat. So to save face is you hide this defeat in the court processes, because you can cajole the judiciary, they rule in your favor, buy you some time.
Duncan, did you say you are NRM?
Yes, I am NRM.
Okay. I'm just clarifying.
Yeah, that's the truth. You see, the difference...
He should be done representing NRM every Saturday.
I think so.
The difference between me and Dombo is not reading the room. Dombo belongs to the class that thinks, for example, with all that is happening, that they can win an election in Kampala. Dombo, you can't win an election in Kampala. That's a fact. with all that is happening. It doesn't matter the amount of money you put.
Dombo may even have an escort outside.
Absolutely. I saw somebody walking around with a gun.
So you are right. He may not be on the ground.
They cannot win an election. We cannot win an election in Kampala, no matter the amount of money we put, no matter the amount of deployment we make, because you have to read the times. Yeah. So NRM can cajole the judiciary to buy time, go in the court processes, so that another by-election does not happen until the general election. You know, a defeat in the general election is not as painful as a defeat in a by-election. Because in a by-election, you have full deployment of every available force, including the president who went there to campaign, to the entire secretariat team of Dombo and Honorable Richard Todongo.
To be fair, this might be the first by-election that NRM has lost in this election period.
But the others, they were just cheating.
You see, there were some other by-elections. We had a by-election in Kayunga. Votes were counted after, I think, to midnight. The margin were very big in favor of my brother's candidate here, Benjamin. And by the time we woke up, it was another story. we had another by-election.
The votes kept coming.
We had another by-election, I think, in Bukedia. Yes. And I think that by-election in Bukedia, even the president intervened to have the DPC and the entire security apparatus arrested. So that those are the elections they're talking about, the by-election that NRM has been winning. But the ground has not been fair. So I think in this by-election, it's just NRM buying time through the court processes. But my last point on the by-election is I want to thank NUP for taking the right decision to say, let's not go back to this election. Let's rather appeal and buy time. Because that by-election had a lot of human cost and other costs. Many people were arrested. Somebody could have died. Some people could have died if we had had this by-election.
That were hurt.
Yes, sure. So they took the right decision to say, let's take the judicial route and go into the appealing process and so forth. This by-election in Kawempe, I think, was as difficult as the by-election we had when I was a child in high school. There was a by-election in Kanungu when Honorable Tumwebaze was Minister for Defense versus James Mzingsgarga, a rich man of the FDC. And because I was studying in Mbara High School and we were near the road going to Kabare, Kunjir, Kanungu, on the eve of the election, there were so many members going into that direction of the election. You could think there was war. So this is the second election where I've seen a huge deployment of the military. Exactly. This is the second by-election after the Tumwebaze versus James Garuga, where I've seen a war zone in a parliamentary election. So I think NUP took the right decision not to go back into the election but to go to court.
Honorable Dom, your comment is opposition has always asked for a quick judgment. So
absolutely, because every time I listen to Ugandans, I keep wondering what exactly a good Ugandan should do when you become a leader. Because one, many Ugandans have been accusing NRM of not believing in the rule of law. So the processes that happened in Kawempe gave us an opportunity as a party to go to the courts of law, so that we use the law as is to resolve an issue which they themselves are acknowledging that the process wasn't good. If the law prevents even going with a knife and the member goes there, is that a good election? So if that election is not nullified, won't it be an incentive for people to do that for future elections? These are the reasons why we went to court, so that the processes, really, looking at the election as it was in Kawempe, there is nothing to say the process was fair, and everybody would see that the process affected the outcome. Irrespective of the language that the judge used in writing his judgment, even a blind person would see that actually the election in Kawempe was not done in accordance with the law. Secondly, when you interview some of the witnesses that we interacted with, you just don't know the molestation and how people were harassed in their respective areas. People were forced to move out of Kawempe. People were chased off the houses that they were renting. So to us, the outcome of this judgment demonstrates that there is rule of law in Uganda. And the decision by our brothers from the National Unity Platform shows that there is a legal process which can go up to the end. For us, we are very excited and very ready to go back for the elections if we could go. But if the law requires that they want to exhaust the processes for us, we shall wait for that time. If the resolution is given when there is an ample time for us to go back to the elections, that is something that we shall pleasantly accept to go. Wouldn't mind losing an election. But how do we lose an election? We would want to lose an election when the process is very clear and when everybody acknowledges the outcome, that is the will of the people. But what happened in Kawempe is not the will of the people. You saw nomination day, how the Lukola was wrapped up. How would that one benefit an NRM candidate? And the question is, who did it? Because up to now, we are still asking, we want the investigation to let us know who made that order. Because it affected us. The perception of the population, really, that thing affected the Madame Nambi and the outcome of the elections. Finally, I don't know why there is an issue which Honorable Katon, to perhaps in the future when you have an opportunity to reform the law. And this is my personal opinion. It's not an opinion of NRM, but it's an opinion which I have shared with many members of parliament always. That when we go for general elections, why can't we amend the law that a party that wins a constituency wins it for 5 years? Period. When you win it for 5 years, when there is an opportunity for a by-election, the party that won an election should do their internal democracy and give us a candidate.
No, people don't vote for the parties. We are not under parliamentary system.
No. It is the law. You make the law. It's not just as a system. Ours, that is a dual system. It combines both. But it is what you people wish to to implement. If you factored it in the law, what dangers would it have?
So if I'm an independent like me?
Then that one will be vacant.
No,
that one will be vacant.
My son is because I'm independent. My daughter should.
Because an independent is individual. So when the individual dies, it is vacant.
He's giving an opinion.
This is an opinion which you should really reflect on, so that in the future we don't bother the population and the cost of the elections. Agaba is talking about the 1.5 billion or so that NRM could have spent. But there's a lot of money which was spent through the Electoral Commission. Even the National Unity Platform lost the money.
True.
Yet if it was just an internal process of them identifying somebody who would take over, it would have been a cheaper process and would have saved all Ugandans this altercation that has come up. But that is food for thought.
Yeah, it is more complicated.
Which our people
because
could
you
look
could
at.
challenge that the party didn't win. So were you involved? Are you one of the promoters, as Abigava is alleging?
Promoting what?
NRM in Kawempe.
Kawempe, we went in for campaigns as a party. And the party has a structure for which I speak. I'm part of the structure of NRM, wherever NRM is, even when I may not.
Some money.
Even when I may not be there physically, it is whoever will be there speaking on behalf of NRM will be doing it on my behalf.
So did you sit at the secretariat and say, this one we have handed to Balam to manage, Honorable Balam to manage?
No, every time we have an election, we have reinforcements from various people, others volunteering, others deliberately called, like RDCs are called at times to give us support. This is something that usually happens. in as much as they don't participate in issues, which do not offend the law. Which do not offend the law.
No, Katana raises a very important point.
Yes, ask it.
You don't find it irregular that RDCs are recalled from Guru, Mbari to come and reinforce a party in a by-election in Kawempe. They are supposed to be civil servants.
Why? Who says that?
The Constitution, Article 03.
They are not civil servants, but RDCs are political, and this happens in every government, by the way.
RDCs are in the Constitution. They actually are assigned by the Constitution.
Absolutely. Even those are appointed by government, like ministers are.
So you mean judges should...
ministers are not.
Judges are also appointed by the president. So
no, but they are not political. Judges are not. RDCs are political, and they are appointed to protect the manifesto of the party.
Not the party. They are supposed to be representatives of the central government.
They are part of the state infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Not the party
They are part of the state infrastructure.
Not the party
they are
infrastructure.
facilitated by government.
That's why they are paid
but
salary.
they are appointed. That's why.
If you are an RDC and you want to run for a political office, you must first resign.
Absolutely. You must.
Yes. You cannot say that they are political appointees like cabinet ministers.
They don't resign.
Let me tell you.
Even judges are appointed by the president.
Let me tell you.
You cannot call them to represent the party.
RDCs, that one you may want to say that, but I want to tell you the fact. And this happens in all governments. And this happens. You listen.
It doesn't make it irregular.
Just a moment.
This is why we are running. This is why we are running to.
Just hold it once. Okay, yeah, go on.
This is why we are running to change these dombos and the team at the secretariat. No, Honorable Dombo, listen. You have a party structure in Kawempe. Yes. You have, yes, from the parish to the sub-county to the villages. You cannot empower and deploy that party structure. You're calling RDCs from Barara to reinforce. Reinforce what? What are the chairpersons of the party doing in
You think they are not deployed?
No.
You think they are not deployed?
Dombo, you cannot come here really condoning irregularities and lawlessness. You're breaking the Constitution by involving RDCs in party politics.
Let him respond.
I want to tell you that in all governments, be it the United States of America,
you concentrate on
there are offices that are politically appointed. Yes. And those political offices expire with the expiry of the president.
It is true.
Right now, there are ambassadors who have resigned immediately. President Joe Biden. They are public officers, but they do political work.
You are sidestepping the question, Honorable Dombo. The question is, those public people, why should they be involved in a electoral campaign for a party?
No, that's a deployment. You know, RDCs are deployed in their respective districts to manage security.
Can I?
Yes, just a moment. Let me give the answer first.
I just want to know whether that's the official position.
No, let me give the answer. Is
this the official position you want to go on record?
Answer,
yes.
Ask.
I'm asking, is this what you're saying? It is the official position.
Yes. What I'm telling you is what happens.
Answer the question. Is this the official position?
I've answered for him, yes.
Say you are the spokesperson. Is this the official position?
From the party, yes. Absolutely.
I hope you are not quoted.
No, I'm telling you, but you know it, that RDCs are appointed by the president in order to execute the work of the party. Yeah? The manifesto belongs to the party.
Yeah. So, Abdul, away from...
whether you take it, or you want to leave it, or you want to show it...
You have argued your case.
We should help you
Honorable Dombo, you have argued your case.
Between the party and...
But, Abdul, Moses Piaranga puts to you, the judge in the ruling cited the Katinti versus Sita in the Sebaru and the Electoral Commission where the election was nullified. And one of the grounds the appeal court nullified the election in the Katinti case were results from 9 polling stations with a total of 5,000 voters who were not counted. It's after that nullification that Bobi Wine offered himself as a candidate and he won the by-election.
You see, disenfranchisement can be a reason to nullify an election. There's no doubt about that. But the problem is, if the person running to court is actually responsible for the disenfranchisement, I think the court should have gone into it. You see, in law we say, he who seeks equity must come with clean hands. And the court should have been in a position to interrogate. And I was listening to my brother Emmanuel Dombo here, and I was feeling very, very sad to say, yes, Nalkola was beaten. We want to know who is Now, why did they beat Narukola? The members were there. Why did they take the members there? The victim is actually now responsible for the judgment. I mean, this level of impunity, it doesn't make sense at all. There is a victim, and you are responsible for what happened. And then you go and say, by the way, these things happen, which you did. So let this victim again suffer again. To me, if I were seated like a justice who is trying to mete out justice, there are things I would have interrogated. Not that I have an opinion here and there, but I would have interrogated those particular issues. Because you see, and everybody tells you that the elections in Kawempe were not free and fair. Correct. Who was responsible for this? Was it Narukola?
Or the
who benefited from it? Is it Narukola? Who intended to benefit from it? Was it Narukola? In any case, is it isolated that it happened in Kawempe, but it does not happen in other constituencies? And there is a litany. I was the first person to win a by-election under the NRM government in 2007. I know what it means to win a by-election.
Even that
against
long ago.
National Resistance Movement. I know. I was a victim. I know what I went through.
Moses Peranga is telling you,
I went
Emmanuel
through.
Tumwebaze, RDCs are not supposed to be deployed in by-elections. That's your...
No. You know why I was asking Dombo that question? Is this the official position? And the Honorable Emmanuel Tumwebaze said it, that is the official position
From
of
the
government and the party.
Not government, he said from the party.
That's the official position. And I'm telling you, at some point, Dombo's statement will be very useful. That is the party position, that's the official position.
So, Honorable Ssemujju, in conclusion, we need to conclude this show.
We deploy RDCs here.
I think the context of this judgment, either Abdul or Katana mentioned it. Museveni is even in the meetings of NRM, leave alone coming to posture to the public. But even in internal meetings of NRM, Museveni was telling NRM people that we were cheated in Kawempe. In meetings, he says we were cheated. He started calling military people because they had assigned military people per electoral area. Not NRM chairperson or RDC, but military people under Damulira and Major Kutesa. So in his meetings, he was calling Captain Dombo, what happened in Kalerwe. Then they would brief him. Now he's before NRM meeting, said, I'm investigating. And his motivation that he communicated in those meetings of NRM was that if they don't address Kawempe, people will stop seeking NRM sponsorship around Kampala here. So his motivation is that a defeat like the one of Kawempe coming in those circumstances will actually, as the aspiring NRM vice chairman has said, and rightly so, will make NRM people believe that here you cannot win, which is a fact. So Museveni wants people to seek NRM sponsorship even in areas where they will not win. And they do so because they know the state will intervene. So the state intervened in Kawempe, brought Mamba, beat up people, beat up journalists, but NRM remained weak. So that's what Museveni is trying to address strategically. So the Dombos, and I sympathize with the Dombo because he was my commissioner in Parliament, one of the most intelligent MPs, at least during his time. For him to be arguing like a baram, I think Museveni is a very bad man. Like a job, Dombo's job should be given to Baram.
Baram is a minister of Uganda.
Yeah, but you see, Dombo in Parliament as an MP was fantastic. They should give him another job that doesn't bring him to argue the way he's arguing it. This job is good for Baram Dombo. Because how, Dombo on earth, can you say that Narukola was beaten on nomination and therefore his victory should be nullified? Have you heard what Dombo said? That Narukola was beaten on nomination, therefore his victory should be nullified. Really? You come.
He's sitting in
not the
Fonobolosi. But hold on.
That's what you have said. So therefore, Oscar.
Soon to be, yes. Okay. Last sentence.
So the when these facts are presented before any judge, that judge must be very courageous now to consider the context under which the evidence is brought. Because that evidence on any other day would be used to identify an election. Yeah. But this particular one, where the person who has come to the court is the one who was responsible for it, I don't know if we have had a case like that, Abdul, before. That someone who goes to cheat an election and you fail, and then you go to court and they say, I was not successful in cheating. Can you nullify?
Thank you.
I'm waking up to this.
Duncan Abigava, one sentence, conclusion. And your laugh is catching social media.
I have seen actually.
You said it is maybe because of coffee. I don't know.
I don't know. You know, my former classmates in Russia sometimes ask me for a recording of my laughter. It's a sensation. I think I should. It's a trademark. I think I should start charging for it.
Okay.
Yeah. But
just a sentence. Yes.
Yeah, but a sentence is Honorable Dombo and the team. I think this is there is a lot of apathy. There's a lot of apathy. There is a lot of fatigue. There is a lot of fatigue in the NRM. This is why Honorable Dombo comes here to justify deployment of the state apparatus. People who are supposed to be part of the state, the RDCs, in internal NRM processes. Because Honorable Dombo and the team have made sure that the party becomes completely dysfunctional.
Thank you.
So we are coming in to make sure that we revive the party structures and
Benjamin
so forth.
Katana, one sentence.
Yeah, so I think this discussion summarizes the challenge that we are dealing with as a nation, that the NRM has been around for a long time and has crossed the line. There is no line between the party and the state. So when they look at the judges, they look at the soldiers, they look at the policemen and the other civil servants, they see an extension of the political machinery of the NRM. And that's part of why we are dealing with the problems that we are dealing with, that the state institutions cannot function properly because they are politicized.
Honorable Dombo, one sentence.
I've been in a number of by-elections, and I've seen RDCs formally deployed to manage security, to ensure that people of Uganda go and vote have a free and fair election. The RDCs are part of the government's infrastructure, which is deliberately deployed by government to ensure that the disenfranchised Ugandans, who would be because of the threats that happen, that these RDCs beef up the security so that Ugandans come and vote. This is part of what
giving another narrative.
This is
run
basically
away. You've run away because you had fallen into a trap.
No.
Now you are running away to sanitize it.
That is because NRM doesn't deploy them. But what I told you,
you have just said it so. You forgot what you said 1 minute ago.
Just listen. What I've told you is that RDCs are political. RDCs are political, and they are appointed deliberately and deployed to protect, to ensure that the manifesto of the party is fulfilled.
Thank you, Honorable Dombo, for that spirited response. Star Cafe, thank you for energizing gang. Duncan Abigava has gifts that he wants to give very quickly.
The Ntungamo Coffee Hub.
What is it called?
Inspire Africa Coffee.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, listeners. Star Cafe, thank you. School is starting. Thank you very much. Parents returning children to school, wish them a good second term. The gangsters of the day, thank you so much. We have encountered Duncan Abigava's laugh. I am Hon Ssemujju, and I'll see you next week.